Thanks for joining us. I'm Brooke Hash. Here on your Friday, you might be seeing a break in the rain during your lunch hour, but more is on the way for your weekend. A lot of it. Matt Breland, you've been tracking it out, but I think we've had enough of this.
Yeah, definitely. I know it has been a rainy trend for this week. I know me and Grace McKenna this morning were talking about just how we can't just escape it. But thankfully, our Friday afternoon is bringing in some relief from those rain showers. But as we mentioned, we're still tracking more to arrive for the weekend. Temperatures are currently into those lower 80s. Winds staying calm, and we're seeing just a few of those passing clouds still in our skies. Temperatures ranging in between the upper 70s and lower 80s near southern Indiana. 80 for Seymour, 78 Bedford. 82 for you guys near Brandenburg, 82 near Shepherdsville, 82 as well for you guys near Hodgenville. On satellite and radar, you'll notice that most of the activity has now made its way farther to our east, and now we're just seeing a mix of those sun and clouds and still a few of those isolated showers. More development closer towards our southern counties near Campbellsville, Greensburg. You guys are in for just a few rounds of some of those brief downpours. That's going to be the case for the rest of our afternoon. There's a very slight or a small chance that we could see some of those isolated storms become a bit strong at times for you guys just towards the south of Brandenburg, near Litchfield and near Elizabethtown. You guys could see some more of that activity just as we go later on into our day. So here's what we're talking about. Closer to that 3 p.m. hour, some of those spotty showers still developing for you folks farther to our south, but then we stay mostly quiet into the evening time. Once we enter our overnight hours, that's whenever we're going to reintroduce chances for these scattered showers, likely leading to a rainy start for our Saturday morning and then a stormy afternoon for Saturday. We're going to have all those details here in just a few short minutes. Here's a look at temperatures for today, reaching the upper 80s throughout the later parts of the afternoon. That's a quick look at weather. More details coming up. Brooke.
November 19, 2016, Tommy Ballard was killed in the field directly behind me, just off the Bluegrass Parkway.
Well, the family of Tommy Ballard has upped the reward for tips leading to an arrest in his murder case. Tommy Ballard, as you know, the father of Crystal Rogers, was killed while hunting in 2016. And while justice has been brought for Crystal Rogers, Tommy Ballard's murder remains unsolved. In a social media post yesterday, the family said they've upped that reward now to $50,000 for tips leading to an arrest and a conviction. They're asking anyone with information to contact state police. The sanctity of a small cemetery with unmarked graves in southern Indiana has been the center of a controversy. We are talking about a place in Henryville in northern Clark County. Our Jose Alonso and photojournalist Aspen Hester tell us why a commission is bringing this to the public's attention and why the property owner next door is frustrated.
At the center of controversy is this plot of land on North Frankie Road in Henryville, Indiana, getting soaked in rain. The property owner, Arlen Caffey, is set to build and sell a house on the land.
I've already got my building permit, and they're going to start digging here next week.
But behind this fence is the Little Union Pioneer Cemetery that houses several unmarked graves. Within the Little Union Cemetery, there is a marker that shows 26 people were buried here throughout the decades in the 1800s.
I just hate to see us lose another cemetery, even though this is part of the cemetery. We still have the main part up on the hill, thank goodness. But so many of our cemeteries are being lost.
President of the Clark County Cemetery Commission, Nancy Hemphill, says although there are no gravestones on Caffey's property, there is a chance people are still buried there.
I asked the owner if he would please check to make sure there were no graves there, and it can be done easily with a dowser. It can be done with radar.
The property owner says x-raying the ground would cost 8 to 10 grand, so he hired a more inexpensive dowser. In these pictures Hemphill showed us, they marked several spots they believe where bodies are buried. But Caffey didn't trust the person he hired was legit.
And this guy was a nut. He come and he had 2 sticks. And he told me, oh, well, there's a body here. It's a female. There's a body over here. It's a male. Nothing like that. So I set him up, and I put a cross over here on this side where there was no grave. And he goes, oh, yeah, that's a female body there. Well, nothing.
The property owner now feels vilified by his neighbors, many who tell us they just want to ensure no soul in Clark County is disturbed. In Henryville, Jose Alonso, WHAS11 on your side.
Now, the property owner has followed the law from rezoning and committing to keep that house 100 feet away from the cemetery. The Indiana Department of Natural Resources did tell him that if a body is under construction, he must cease operations and report it. Reaction continues to pour in. The DOJ recommended no jail time for the former LMPD detective convicted in the Breonna Taylor raids. Brett Hankison was convicted of violating her civil rights when he fired into her apartment during a botched police raid in 2020. Activists we spoke with calling the recommended sentence an insult to Taylor and her family.
Well, I think you can't explain the unexplainable. It's unexplainable because we know it's just not possible that you can come to a verdict like that when you know someone's guilty. The judge said he's guilty, the jury said he's guilty, but yet he served no time.
We were there as activists gathered to honor civil rights leader John Lewis, the so-called Good Trouble protest marking 5 years since his death. Our Clary Shaley and photojournalist Emma Gefter spoke with those who gathered about that sentencing and their continued fight for justice.
The people, united, will never be divided. I want my grandchildren to live in a country that they can be proud of, and right now this is not a country that we can be proud of.
Standing at the steps of the federal building with the cause.
What can we do? Being here is one small thing we can do.
Louisvillians honored the late civil rights leader and U.S. Representative John Lewis along a nationwide showing.
Democracy demands good trouble! And what we're doing here, we're forming a human chain. And we're seeing how far we can stretch because that shows support.
Even in the rain, these people hold strong in their push for a better America. This on the same day the Department of Justice recommends no jail time for Brett Hankison. The former LMPD officer was found guilty by a federal jury to have violated Breonna Taylor's civil rights by using excessive force and firing shots into her apartment in 2020. The DOJ recommends Hankison be sentenced to 3 years supervised probation. Reasons include a lack of criminal history, PTSD from media surrounding his trial, and as an officer, he could be exposed to abuse in prison, in a case that brought Louisville to the streets.
Every time we think something's bad, and that's the worst it can be, then something else pops in.
It's a real slap in the face. I feel like the hands of time have been turned back.
I am not at all shocked with this Department of Justice that we are currently under.
Chanel with Black Lives Matter Louisville says the city is tired of pushing for change that never comes, especially when it comes to police reform.
They can write as many standard operating procedures as they want to. They can have as many boards, they can have as many foundations. But when it comes to like what treatment and what is equated to our communities, we don't see that.
Tired but refusing to back down.
I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here with my son.
I'm Clarice Shaley, WHAS11 on your side.
In a statement, Mayor Craig Greenberg voiced his opposition to that recommended sentence, saying Hankison's actions warrant serious prison time. He said since the tragic death of Breonna Taylor, Louisville has taken significant steps toward healing and reform. Our community has shown resilience and a shared commitment to justice. That work is far from over. Meanwhile, for John Mattingly, the development is refreshing. Mattingly is that retired LMPD sergeant who was shot in the leg by Taylor's boyfriend that night of the raid. He said the trial and going through that process was punishment enough for Brett Hankison.
We saw this back when they first started, when they dropped all the lawsuits against cities for the consent decrees, including Louisville. So you knew we were moving in the right direction as far as at least trying to get on the right path back to common sense.
Hankison is scheduled to appear in federal court Monday for his sentencing.
You see the overuse of the 911 system. So you realize there has to be a better way to do this to get the people the care that actually is the most appropriate.
Not all medical calls to 911 require an ambulance, but right now that's Louisville's only way to respond when someone calls for help. MetroSafe says that could change by the end of the year. The department has plans for a medical triage diversion program meant to divert 911 calls that don't always need a paramedic. MetroSafe manager James Polk is bringing back an old idea, hiring nurses to give medical advice over the phone.
So if we can pull runs out of the system and keep ambulances available, then emergent calls are going to get answered quicker, and we're not going to be having to send trucks from all over the city.
At first, the program would be available for about 8 hours during the day, the busiest period, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Polk said it could eventually expand to 24 hours a day. That triage program will work similarly to the mental health crisis Metro line created and then recently expanded to 24 hours.
I think seeing the success of that program has definitely stoked the fire to get this other program started and have a medical triage here.
Metro Council allocated $649,000 for that program in the mayor's budget proposal this year. That's enough to fund 8 new in-house positions. Polk said off-site telehealth may end up handling triage calls, or could be some combination of the two. He'd like to see that program launched by the end of this year. Looking ahead now to those extended lane closures that begin tonight on U.S. Highway 42. They are part of the $130 million project to improve the Waterson and U.S. 42. The state plans to widen the expressway, add extra lanes to the ramps for Brownsboro Road and Westport, and build a new intersection design called a single-point urban interchange. The lane closures will be on Brownsboro from Rudy Lane to Glenview Avenue beginning at 6 o'clock tonight. They will last through 6 a.m. on Monday. In Indiana, an education program meant to help graduates is being cut because of the education funding freeze. River Valley Resources in Jeffersonville, Indiana, said the Jobs for America's Graduates, or JAG program, that funding was eliminated. In Kentucky, that same program was just applauded by Governor Andy Beshear this week. River Valley Resources also had funding for its adult education programs slashed, forcing them to lay off 11 educators. Catherine McCollum said this will have generational impacts on Hoosiers. Attorney General Russell Coleman is filing a lawsuit against Temu, the Chinese online shopping platform. The complaint alleges it illegally collects data without knowledge and consent, violating customers' privacy and counterfeiting Kentucky brands, including the University of Kentucky and Louisville, Buffalo Trace Distillery, and Churchill Downs. Attorney General Coleman said they are eroding trust in some of Kentucky's most iconic brands, which could lead to job losses and hardship. Kentuckians need a strong defense against this aggression, and that's exactly what the Attorney General's office intends to do.